Tyrion Lannister's relationship with his siblings is about as different as most siblings' relationships are different than Jaime and Cersei's, i.e., please don't do your sibling. But I think there are some very interesting factors that play into the reasoning why Tyrion's relationship with Jaime and Cersei develops so differently. Because I'll say up until, the end of Storm of Swords, Jaime and Tyrion are relatively close and get along relatively really well. Like, I should stop saying relatively. They get along well. They're close even if they don't see each other. When we are in either of their POVs, they think about that sibling fondly. It seems to be a very sweet relationship, as opposed, of course, to the Cersei-Tyrion relationship, which is bad, not good. Some might say horrifically unhealthy. I say it's bad. But as I teased earlier, I think you can kind of track the trend of the relationships from relatively early age and then mark as they continue to either deteriorate or strengthen as time goes on. So let's get the first factor out of the way. There is the passing of Joanna Lannister, their mother. Joanna Lannister passes away in childbirth, bringing Tyrion into the world. It obviously is very sad and leaves the family basically broken at this point. Because remember, Joanna seems to have been like the only positive stabilizing force in the family. She kept Tywin happy. She had a decent relationship with the children. Enough so that at least we can surmise that like they were traumatized by her loss. Cersei, ruminates on the fact that she doesn't have that relationship with her mother because it was taken from her. You have Jaime, who later is dreaming about his mother. There's a definite loss there. And then from Tywin's perspective that, well, she was the only person that had ever made him smile. Healthy. So we have this first factor, this first defining factor, and that is that Tyrion enters the world, and his entrance into the world is in conjunction with his mother's unfortunate exit. And how do the twins react? Well, differently. Cersei, who's the world champion grudge holder of all time, an undefeated champion, she goes, I hate you for life. I hope you get plague. I never liked you. I want to hurt you at every possible moment that I can. Boo. Also, all of this is to a baby. No, don't forget. This is a very similar position to what Tywin will take, basically blaming Tyrion for the loss of Joanna. Now, funnily enough, it seems like Jaime has the sane response of being like, well, Tyrion didn't do it. A child doesn't do that. They don't just off their mother. This is a whoops. So no, Jaime doesn't end up developing this weird, illogical hatred of his sibling because his mother passed away. He's like, oh, well, my sibling is a little awkward. He's got some issues, but he's a sweet kid. So he develops a soft spot for Tyrion, and that, starts to lead him in a very different direction than from Cersei. And so with these dueling perspectives, the first 3 years of Tyrion's life, which obviously he's not going to remember very much, kind of revolve around this dynamic of Cersei wanting to hurt him and Jaime stopping her. We get a taste for that in the memory that Oberyn Martell shares when they went to Casterly Rock, where they wanted to see the monster that Cersei, kept talking about. And when they went to go show Tyrion to him, he's like, that's just a kid. I don't know what you're talking about. And then Cersei starts trying to, hurt the baby, twisting parts of him that don't like to be twisted. And she only stops when Jaime stops her. So we can assume first 3 years of his life, that's kind of the dynamic. There's Jaime kind of trying to look out for this kid, and Cersei just on the rage quest. Things change, however, at the end of that third year. The twins, they turn 10, and they both have life-altering events. Jaime is finally sent away from Casterly Rock to go be a squire. He's getting to engage in the knightly masculine privileges that are given to people in the realm, while Cersei isn't. Cersei gets to sit at the rock and learn girl things, which Cersei has a whole relationship with femininity that is fascinating, and it can be its own multi-part series if anyone ever wants that. But just to simplify, she doesn't enjoy herself. And so I think the separation from Tyrion on Jaime's part kind of does one big thing in that it keeps that relationship kind of at arm's length so that when they do see each other, it becomes special. So Jaime does visit occasionally, and when he does, that becomes a treat. That becomes a treat for those two siblings, in my opinion. But Cersei's always there. Cersei's always there. She's not too pleased. She's just, pissy. And then at the same time, when Jaime gets sent away to become a squire, Cersei, with her friend Melara, goes and visits Maggie the Frog and gets the prophecy of the Valonqar. That is the prophecy, of course, that the Valonqar, which means little brother in High Valyrian, will unalive Cersei. And Cersei's like, wow, already you took out my mother, now you want to take out me and my children? Like, I hate you. I'm gonna get you first. And so the trauma continues. So Cersei now has no reason to like Tyrion. No reason to like him at all. He is the monster that took out her mother. He is the monster who has been now prophesized to take her out and her family and her dreams, and she's just gonna have none of it. She doesn't have to see him all the time. It's at this time that they're kind of I think they move to King's Landing, where Tywin takes her there for a little while, and then they go back to the Rock. So there's some back and forth. So she's not seeing Tyrion consistently, in the same way, ironically, that Jaime is. But when Jaime does see Tyrion, he tries to make it a special thing. Unfortunately, that doesn't always turn out super well, like in the case of when Jaime basically was involved with the whole Tysha situation, Tyrion's first wife. That happened when Tyrion was 13. It was a whole to-do, but I think that's an example of Jaime being there for him in a way that Cersei would never have been involved. So by the time that we get to the present day, we have these two very established dynamics. Jaime is the long-lost brother who shows up every so often, doesn't have a care in the world. They have a jolly good time and they depart on good terms. And then Cersei is the sibling who Tyrion just occasionally has to live with for long stretches at a time. And it's not enjoyable. They don't like each other. It's bad. Jaime gets to be the cool older brother who shows up, brings you a toy, takes you to the movies, that you go and you have a crazy night out, and then he drops you off at home and says, hey, yeah, I'll see you in a few months, kid, and bebops out of there. Versus Cersei, who's just always present, always annoyed, and always anytime Tyrion is around, she's angry. And so Tyrion, for better or worse, is very aware of this and lives his life accordingly, sometimes poking fun at her, sometimes ignoring her. It doesn't help the relationship at all, either way. All this to say, I think there are a lot of very interesting similarities between Tyrion's kind of entrance and the way he maintains his presence in each of their lives. They contrast each other, but a lot of the times Tyrion shows up in the same position and then they just react differently to him. And then because of that, they go further and further down these divergent roads. And we can see how divergent they are because when Tyrion feels like he's been betrayed by each of his siblings, he reacts very differently to it. When he thinks Cersei's betray him, which he thinks she's done, multiple times, he's never shocked. He's never even particularly angry about it because he's just oh, well, this is just something I have to deal with because that's what I expect from her. But when he gets a big thing, when he hears from Jaime that Jaime was involved in a particular cover-up with his first wife, well, that is the ultimate betrayal because this is the one person who he would never expect to be betrayed by. And I think it's that difference, that Tyrion's reaction to those betrayals, that really show just how oceans apart those two relationships are. Anyway, good night, y'all. Bye.